In Formula One, the war for a few thousandths of a second isn't just fought on the track, It's fought in the wind tunnels, the design offices, and maybe most importantly, in the gray areas of the rulebook. Today, we are unpacking Ferrari's super controversial Hetta device. It's a fantastic story of brilliant engineering, high-stakes F1 politics, and a little see-through component that has the entire paddock buzzing.
And you know things are getting serious when you hear quotes like this: Ferrari's biggest rival, Mercedes, is already getting ready for a fight. This just sets the stage perfectly for a classic Formula One technical showdown, where the battle in the race director's office can be just as fierce as the one on the asphalt.
Alright, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at what this device actually is. Then, we'll dive into the super clever loophole Ferrari seems to have found. After that, we'll see how their rivals totally freaked out, talk about the really important safety debate, and finally, look at what Ferrari's planning to do next.
So let's get right into it. The whole thing kicked off when this strange new element just popped up on the front of the Ferrari's halo. Right away, you could tell it was different. It wasn't the usual black carbon fiber we see everywhere, and that immediately got the whole pit lane talking.
Okay, so this is the so-called Hetta device, and it's at the heart of all this drama. Basically, it's a set of small winglets, but, and this is the key, instead of being made from carbon fiber, they're made from a clear, transparent material. And their purpose? It's all about one thing: finding an aerodynamic edge. Now, this is where things get really, really clever. The true genius here isn't just the shape of the winglet, it's the material. Choosing to make it transparent was a very deliberate move to try and exploit a tiny, specific loophole in the FIA's technical rulebook.
So you've got to be asking, why go to all that trouble? Why make it see-through? It's not really for the driver to see through it. In fact, that's a whole other can of worms we'll get into later. No, the answer is all about how the rules treat different parts of the car.
And here it is, this is the hack. The rules for bolting things directly onto the halo are incredibly strict. You can barely add anything. But the rules for what's considered the windscreen area are way more relaxed. So by making the winglets from a windscreen-like material, Ferrari is basically arguing, hey, this isn't a halo part, it's a windscreen part. It's a clever way to get freedom their rivals just don't have.
So what's all this for? What's the actual performance gain? Well, it's all about taming the air. First, it gives them a tiny but crucial bit more downforce right on the front of the car. Second, and this might be the bigger deal, it helps clean up all that messy, turbulent air, the vorticity, that spins off the halo. By smoothing out that chaos, it actually helps reduce the car's overall drag.
And what does all that add up to? Maybe just a few hundredths of a second a lap. Now, that sounds like nothing, right? But in Formula One, where qualifying could be decided by a thousandth of a second, a few hundredths is an absolute lifetime. It's a huge advantage and for sure worth fighting for.
But hang on, if this thing is so great, why did it suddenly vanish from the car in China? Well, my friends, this is the exact moment the engineering game stops and the political game begins.
Yeah, this was a pure strategic retreat, a tactical move. The FIA was starting to ask some pointed questions, and Ferrari knew they were walking a fine line. If a rival team officially protested and the stewards ruled against them, poof, they could have had both cars thrown out of the race results. That was a gamble they just weren't willing to take.
And this really lays it all out, doesn't it? You've got this three-way dance going on. Ferrari's the innovator, pushing the rules to the absolute limit to get an edge. Mercedes is the angry rival, ready to protest because they want to shut that advantage down. And caught in the middle is the FIA, just trying to figure out its own rulebook and keep things fair.
And get this, here's the really juicy part. It turns out Mercedes apparently looked into a similar idea themselves, but they had to scrap it because it just wouldn't work with their car's design. So you can imagine how they felt when they saw Ferrari pull it off. It kind of explains why they're so eager to get it banned, right?
Now, let's say Ferrari actually wins the legal argument. Even then, their rivals have another card up their sleeve. And honestly, it's the most powerful one they can play: driver safety.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how clever or fast a new part is. If it makes the car unsafe, it's a total non-starter. So that brings us to the most important question of all. Is this thing actually safe for the guy in the cockpit?
And the concerns here are pretty serious. Even though it's transparent, it's not invisible. It can distort the driver's view. Critics are saying it could easily block something critical, like a marshal's flag on the side of the track, or maybe even another car when you're going wheel to wheel into a corner.
So you've got two completely different stories. Ferrari is adamant. They say, look, it sits just above where the driver normally looks. It's not a problem.
but their critics, and a lot of fan mock-ups, suggest it's sitting right in a critical part of the driver's vision, creating a really dangerous blind spot.
So where do we go from here? Is the Hetta device dead and buried? Oh, no way. Ferrari has not given up. They believe in this concept, and they've got a whole plan to bring it back to the track, fully legal and ready to race.
And they're being very methodical about it. Step 1 was the tactical withdrawal in China. Next up, they've got a special filming day scheduled at Monza, a super high-speed track, to get more data. And the end goal? They want to bring back a final, bulletproof version for the Miami Grand Prix as part of a huge upgrade package.
Yeah, and that Monza test is going to be huge. They won't just be looking at the Hetta device in isolation. They're testing it with a whole new system, including a new rear wing they're calling the Macarena. It just shows you that Ferrari sees this thing as a key piece of their car's entire aerodynamic philosophy.
So in the end, the fate of this clever little winglet really boils down to these three things. Is it technically legal? Can it survive the political storm from other teams? And, most importantly, can Ferrari prove that it's 100% safe for the drivers?
So, to wrap it all up, what have we learned? Well, the Hetta device is a seriously clever piece of engineering that plays right on the edge of the rules. It's become a new flashpoint in the epic rivalry between Ferrari and Mercedes. And, maybe most importantly, it forces everyone to ask that fundamental F1 question: where do you draw the line between incredible innovation and driver safety?
Which leads me to the final thought I want to leave you with. What do you think this is? Is this the kind of genius, out-of-the-box thinking that makes Formula One so amazing? Or is it just a cheap trick that bends the rules too far and should be banned for good? The answer to that is probably going to define one of the biggest technical fights of the season.